Okay, Sal, here we are again with another episode of The High Ground powered by Premier Companies, and it is our first episode of 2022.
That's Happy New Year, huh?
It's Happy New Year. So today we've got another guest that has volunteered to drive in from way over in Illinois. He's crossed a time zone, and he even stayed the night to visit with us this morning. So it's my pleasure to introduce James Fehr with Jenner Equipment. James, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and any personal items you'd like to throw in there.
Very well. First of all, I want to just, I'm excited to be a part of this High Ground podcast. It sounds like a neat way to communicate to the customers and to your interested people out there wanting to know a little bit more about Premier and the companies you work with. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Central Illinois. I live over by Peoria, Illinois now. Me and my wife. We have 4 grown children. We have 11 grandchildren, so that keeps us busy. But
Had a house full over the holidays,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I was sharing with Sal earlier that we 2 of my daughters live south. One's in Georgia and one's in Florida, and they brought their children home. And so, yeah, it was very busy. But
I'd go see them if I were you.
Yeah. You got that wrong.
My wife and I talk about that now and then. So a little bit about myself. I've been with Jenner's now 23 years. Grew up on a small farm, grain and livestock farm. Started working for a co-op right out of school, high school. Worked there for a number of years as an operator. Did some construction. I started working for Jenner Sales back in '98, and at that time I was the account manager for Northern Illinois. So I had the northern half of Illinois. We were a fairly small company. We sold about $10 million of equipment. It's kind of crazy when I think about it today. If we don't sell that a month, we're really disappointed. So anyway, we were about a $10 million company when I started. There was 18 of us for our company, and it was kind of a new adventure for me. I hadn't really done sales. I had done actual operations and managed a plant for a co-op there in Illinois. And so when I started working for Jenner's, it was a real opportunity to take some of the things I knew and share with some of my customers and be able to sell them some advantages that we had for them.
James, I didn't know that about your history, that you were an operator, so you've actually ran some of the same types of equipment that you're selling today, right?
Yeah, so I actually 4 years I was an operator and 4 years I managed a plant. And the 4 years that I was managing a plant was when we went from mixing chemicals out in the gravel lot to having to put up chemical sheds, and everybody was that was back in the early 90s when we were converting all the outside.
The Wild West.
The Wild West.
Yep.
We had to and we thought that, man, this is crazy stuff, but where would we be today if we hadn't made some of those changes? So that was exciting times. So I went to work for Jenner's in 98. Just a little bit of a tidbit about 98. 98 is when Roundup became really popular, and it was really hard. I was going to retailers trying to convince them they needed to spend, back then it would have been about $70,000, $80,000 for a new sprayer. And I would pull in the lot and I'd tell them they need to buy a new sprayer. And they'd say, do you realize that our chemical program just went from $30, $40 to $10 for a bean acre? And so it was a really tough time when I started with Jenner's back in 98, 99 was some rough years for our company.
Yeah, that was, I think 1998 was that was the year we found out exactly how far Roundup would move in the aerosol vapor droplets. So sometimes we would get into another field that we didn't intend to. So, James, can you tell us a little bit about what is Jenner? So tell us about Jenner Equipment.
So Jenner has been in business for 60 years. In 21 we marked 60 years. Jenner started as a Tyler distributor. So back when Jenner would have started, they were selling mainly applicators, pull-type applicators that you'd pull behind a tractor,
sure,
and boxes that would have gone on trucks. So that's how Jenner started.
The spinner boxes.
Spinner boxes, yep. A lot of buggies. We sold a lot of buggies back that day, when it started. And it just kind of progressed. And then Tyler sold out to Case IH in, that would have been in 99. 98, 99, right in there. And that's when we went from being white and tan to red.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we went from being a distributor to more of like a dealer. Jenner's has always had the responsibility since the very beginning, really, to cover Illinois and Indiana. That's kind of been our territory. At one point in time, we might have even had a little more area than that. But for the bulk of our 60 years, we've covered Illinois and Indiana. We've always done it out of one location. We've had the application business, that is. We cover, we call it kind of the hub and spoke. We have our service techs. They live in the territory. So their service trucks, they take them to their house at night, and they start from their home in the morning. So we don't see those service trucks real often, and we ship most of the parts to them. And then the same way for our account managers, they also work from their homes. And so we are able to do that from one location. We bring all the equipment in to our location there at Harristown, which is real close to Decatur. It's just on the west side of Decatur, Illinois. And we bring the equipment in there, and we prep it to take out to the customers. We say we mess it up just a little bit so that we're the only ones that can work on it. But typically that's all we do at our shop is there at Harristown is get the equipment ready to go to the customer for the first
James,
time.
when you say equipment, we have some listeners that may not be familiar with the type of equipment. So what type, kind of explain to a novice what type of equipment we're talking about.
Yeah, so our main product would be the application equipment that Case builds. So that would be, we would call it a floater. They're 4-wheel or 3-wheel floaters. Those would be, most of those are going to be with a flex air where we can actually use air out the booms or a spinner. We also can equip those with a liquid system to do high gallons. So guys that are doing, your solution pre-plant, they'll a lot of times use a floater to do that.
Yeah, so we go over the fields with this equipment and we spray and we spray the pesticides, or we'll spread fertilizer on the fields with this equipment. And oh, by the way, the floater, they don't really float. I mean, that does a good job but we've hung a few of them up, haven't we?
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little funny story with that. So I actually received a phone call from a customer one time. Actually, it's not that long ago. And he told me that when we sold him his piece of equipment, we weren't exactly honest with him because we said it was a floater and it was stuck at the moment. So, and he was actually fairly serious. And anyway, yeah, they will sink, and they're
a little like fishing. There's floaters and there's sinkers. We have both.
So then we also sell the post sprayers. That's kind of our mainstay. You see them running around in the spring and the fall. Most of those are set up with liquid tanks, and we're using those to. We do high gallons with them. We also do, most of your chemistry is around 20 gallons if we're not using suspension or fertilizer. So we're doing 15 to 20 gallons with those sprayers. Patriot is our brand. Case IH went with the Patriot they kept it from Tyler, and so and then in the last 5 years we've introduced a machine called the Trident, and the Trident actually allows us to do liquid and dry, so we can actually convert it from a dry to a liquid machine, and so you get kind of a dual purpose for that.
They switch the beds off. They can use the same frame, same truck, or same piece of equipment, but switch the beds off to do a different.
That is right.
Do a different purpose.
Yeah, and that was actually designed. There's other competitors out there that have equipment that can be changed. The big advantage that we have with the Trident is the fact that it's actually designed to be switched. So you can actually switch it. We say you can do it over a lunch hour. If you have the right crane or the right piece of equipment to switch it, you can actually switch it over literally in an hour and be doing dry in the morning and liquid in the afternoon. So wow. That's been a real advantage for us. The other pieces of equipment that we sell a lot of would be anhydrous equipment. So we sell a lot of toolbars where we're putting on anhydrous gas in the spring and in the fall. We sell that. Used to be the DMI line. Case purchased that from DMI, or purchased DMI, and that's another product that we sell. We also have liquid applicators as well in that role. ag systems to be like your running gear, your tending equipment. We really have, Sal, we have a short line product that just about covers any of your needs that you would need at a retail fertilizer plant. So like if you think about a banjo valve or a squib, there's just a lot of different pieces of equipment that we have. Raven would be another one of our big movers. We have we sell a lot of Raven. That's the electronic side. So
for those listeners that aren't familiar, it's amazing the consolidation of brands and now what you can offer. And then back to your service, as your sales have built and these brands have built, now you've got this whole service department that can service all these pieces of equipment, right?
It's really interesting. About, I'm going to say 7-8 years ago, we had what we called a precision manager, and so he would work on just the electronic side of the equipment, and you know, he was covering Illinois and Indiana, so there would be some days he was literally covering from the north tip down to the southern tip of, you know, one state to the other. And we realized that we really needed to use him as a trainer and to teach our techs to be able to go out and actually do the work from the front to the end, from the beginning to the end, so they could do all the electronic as well as the mechanical. And that was a huge advantage for us, because most of our competitors, they have a specialist that does the precision side, and then they have someone that does the actual wrenching. And so we call them uptime service techs. You probably have seen some of our trucks running around. We have kind of a variation of sizes of trucks. We've kind of went from 3/4 ton trucks up to the 2 tons and back down to 3/4. It kind of varied, but they all have cranes. One of the key pieces for our service trucks is to be able to carry out parts. Like I shared, those guys are working from their homes. And so we in the busy season, some of these trucks literally can have $100,000 of inventory on them at one point in time. So we carry a lot of inventory in the territory, and it's important that we do. And then they have to be able to know how to work on that.
That is such a neat concept that you've got the inventory so close to the equipment that needs it, and then even your service team could probably meet up and swap parts if they needed to. So that's a really neat system that you built.
So in the last years, that's been a real challenge to make sure that we have the inventory where it needs to be. And as we think about just the impact of the supply chain issues that we've been facing, Sal, it's been a real challenge for us to make sure that we have the parts and inventory of the parts at the right place.
You notice any parts that are really troublesome to you currently? I mean,
so it's been interesting. Obviously, everybody's heard about the chip shortage. We have a lot of chips in a lot of our pieces of equipment, so that's been a real challenge for us. But it's kind of hit and miss. It's kind of weird how sometimes it can be early last spring, one of the real challenges was getting valves. So Banjo, literally, were not able to get the resin or what they use to make their valves. So we were struggling with just getting the Banjo valves, the simplest of piece that you would think, you know, and when you don't have that, the sprayer doesn't work. So we had to improvise. But yes, there's rubber. As far as tires right now, that's been a real challenge. We've kind of went to all of our resources to try and find tires for this equipment. And there's just a lot of pieces that you never know on a given day what it might be.
Yeah, it's like we went through 2021 and we really cleaned up a lot of the inventory that we kind of like to have, whether that's 15 or 20% of our inventory in parts probably. I don't know what the number is, but that year we cleaned all those closets out, and now we're waiting on new products or active ingredients or resins to come in. So I want to switch a little bit, talk about another piece of red equipment. Can you explain kind of the Case IH and what is that part of the business more geared toward?
So as so I've talked about Jenners. We do have the responsibility in Illinois and Indiana to carry the application equipment, but we do also have a store in Taylorville, and in that store we cover kind of the counties surrounding Taylorville, and we sell the full line of Case equipment. So we're selling combines, planters, tractors, and we cover, that whole line. That is a different group of service techs. That's a different group of sales guys, and that's mainly out of the Taylorville store. But one of the real synergies that we've been able to capture and take advantage of is we have a lot of customers that are using sprayers and floaters, and they're doing anhydrous custom. It's not super popular, and where you're putting the gas on in the spring because it's a little harder to make it all work. But in the fall, in Illinois in particular, we're actually selling a lot of tractors to our retail customers, and they're putting the toolbars behind the tractor. So that's been a great fit for us because we've been able to do that. And we work with the other tractor dealers that do cover those territories as when we can. But at the same time, we do have our service techs trained today, our uptime service techs, to be able to service the quad tracks and the four-wheel drive tractors in the field. So that's been an advantage of ours.
And I think we've got several pieces of the Jenner equipment at Premier Ag, right? I mean, I see the Trident logos on some of the new equipments, and I think as the equipment improves and gets better. I mean, I go back to the 1990s. I don't think you'd ever see cabs of application equipment like you see today, right? You probably had a John Blue pump and a speed and pressure
So in 1988, that was the spider mite year in Illinois. I don't know if it was that over here in Indiana, but in Illinois, we sprayed spider mites, I think, all of July, all of August, until we started combining beans in September. And I did that all on a John Deere 6000, no cab. And my dad would lecture me every night when I would come home because I wasn't wearing my respirator. And I look at where we're at today and the difference. I mean, I had a 60-foot boom. I had no foamer. I would literally have to count rows on the ends. So
I bet that dimethylate or Saigon at that time was the name. Oh my gosh!
I can still smell it.
I bet you can.
It's still. I think it gives me a headache within a couple minutes when I smell it. I know exactly what it is. Getting back to Premier owning a number of pieces, we are very thankful for that relationship. One of my roles at Jenner's is my responsibility is to work with the larger customers. So my title is VP of National Accounts. So obviously Premier's not a national, but you guys work with Winfield, so Winfield would be a national account. So my role at Jenner's is to create a relationship between Premier, Jenner's, and Case. When I first took this role, it's kind of crazy now when I think about it, but our incentives and our discounts were structured for a grower. And so my discounts would literally expire every month. And so when I would go in and give Scott or Ryan a price on a sprayer, it was literally good for 30 days. And today we can actually give you a program. Now, prices are kind of flexible right now. All of us know that. But when things are a little less volatile, we can literally give you a price at the beginning of the year, and we can pretty much honor that as long as that piece of equipment is being built. So it's really important for us to have that relationship with our customers, to know what you're thinking about, what you need. And that's probably the one area in the last year that's been really important, is to be able to figure out what to have on order. And when I think about the number of pieces of equipment that Jenner's has on order today that we have placed, we literally have enough equipment to fulfill everything that we would have sold last year. Now,
wow. We're
hopeful that we're going to get it all, but it's really the only way that we can actually commit to our customers that we're going to be able to get that product. So we're out. We've ordered all the way through Q3 of this year, 22, and they're asking us now to be prepared to place our order for Q4 of 22 and Q1 of 23.
Well, we just looked at our list for 2023, our equipment that is going to be on order going into 2023. So describe to us your inventory management strategy going forward. We've all began to truly appreciate how large car dealerships are in our local in our local communities because they're empty, and looks like they have 10 acres of parking lot with no cars on them. And we think inventory is probably going to be low for maybe forever. Obviously, if you can get an order from us for a piece of equipment ordered exactly like we want it in a time frame that we want it, you don't have to carry it. You don't have to worry about it sitting out there waiting for a buyer. What's your strategy going forward? Is that something that you intend to look at? Maybe not having inventory to where we just drive on a lot and buy something?
Yeah, so ideally, that's the way it would always be best for everybody. You're not getting a piece of aged equipment that sat for 6 months or 9 months. You're getting exactly what you want. We're not actually having to change it in our shops. You're getting it factory. Everything's better when it's done factory. There's an extreme difference between the last time we went through this real demand. So there's an extreme demand today from customers, growers, retail fertilizer companies. There's a good demand, which is fun and it's awesome. The last time we went through this, manufacturers were able to there was not the shortage of if you think about kind of the whole inventory chain, the supply chain, that is, I actually see it as a great way to keep us in check as a dealer. Some people would say this is a huge negative. I can't sell everything that I need to sell. But in 2009, when things were going so crazy, I remember the day I called the account managers and I said, you guys, at that time I was the sales manager, and I called them and I said, guys, you got to quit selling, because we literally cannot get the stuff through the shop and delivered to the customers in a timely manner. We were literally killing our people. And today, this is kind of it really is throttling us back. It's kind of if we can think about it that way, it's kind of keeping us in check. And so we can actually manage the growth. So I don't see it as going to be so back in 2010 and 11, the manufacturers were literally building too much equipment. Today, they're being held in check because of the supply chain. And I don't believe that any manufacturer today has surplus of pieces coming off their line. So I don't have a crystal ball, Ryan. I don't know what the future looks like. Ideally, it's best if you guys can order it the way you want it and it's right. You know, one of the things that's different about just in the last 5-6 years, I mean, as we've made this equipment more, it's just so much more intuitive to what it's doing, and it's just operator friendly. We've went from a $300,000 sprayer to a $500,000 sprayer today. That's what they're costing realistically. And so when you think about having that piece of equipment sitting on your lot and it's not spec'd exactly right, you're going to want it to be exactly right if you're going to spend that kind of money. And so I think it's probably going to be a little less having those extras. Same way with the combine, quad tractors, the same way. I mean, you're talking similar.
And with all the different, with technology, obviously for that price increase, you get there's a lot of benefits coming. I mean, it's not just in steel and wiring. It's in you said intuitive, but there's a lot of things that machine can tell us as it runs across the field. I mean, can you explain a little bit about some of the things you kind of touched into what your uptime reps, is that the right terminology?
Yeah, uptime service techs.
Uptime service techs. So tell us about some of the new technologies that are in the equipment today.
Yeah, so we're everybody wants to talk about autonomous. So autonomous, just so that everybody's familiar with, I remember the first time I seen an autonomous tractor was at the Farm Progress show in Iowa, and it didn't have a cab, it didn't have a seat. And that kind of, for me, it kind of went, oh, how's this going to work? We're going to get to autonomous. I think, in some cases we're there. But these sprayers that you guys are getting today actually are stepping toward that. And when I mean stepping toward that, it will literally drive through the field. It'll stay off the corn, off the beans. It's got cameras today that will literally guide it, whether the corn is canopied or even pre-canopy. So we can actually drive the sprayer through the field. We've been able to drive it straight, but not keeping it off the crop until in the last couple of years. We can turn the spray off on the ends, make the turn. All of that can be done autonomously. The operator literally can push a button and it'll know to turn on the end and do all those steps as you go through the field. So
just to clarify, it turns itself on the end.
It turns itself on the end. Yeah.
Wow. And so for, I mean, just we always talk about auto steer, and the auto steering in agriculture where the either in harvesting or planting, it's got to be so straight, but now we're going beyond auto steer, correct?
Right. We are using cameras that actually is taking pictures as we go through the field of the corn rows or the soybeans, and literally is guiding the steering from that. The other piece of technology that I think is really awesome today is we're using PWM, which is what it does is it allows us to increase and decrease the actual pressure at the tip. So we're controlling each nozzle independent all the way across the 120-foot boom. We actually, Case has a 136-foot boom. So we can actually turn any of those booms or any of those tips up or down as you're going across the field. You can, if you're going around a corner, if you think about it, the outside of that boom is under applying, the inside of the boom is over applying. With the technology that we have today, it actually compensates for that. So the inside of the boom, as you're making a corner, puts on less, the outside puts on more. You can control droplet size. So we call that aim flex on the Case sprayer. Our competitors have something similar, but we've actually been promoting and selling this aim technology since '99. So it's not new to the Jenner or to the Case team. And it's one of the products that I think has really helped us in some of the drift and some of that, because we've been able to control droplet size
Sure.
and everything on the
It's good agronomically and good environmentally and economic. I mean, pretty much catches all the wish list for improvements.
Is there work going on with chemical companies and that technology? I mean, when you go to develop something like that as an equipment person, maybe you understand what that product needs, maybe you don't. Is there coordination between chemical companies and equipment companies to make sure that you can do that?
There actually is. That was kind of on the chemical side. I would say there was a little bit of a delay, but now that they figured it out, that they can actually have the equipment do what they want as far as droplet size and the gallons and the pressure, and those can work independent of each other. They've actually really worked well together there.
Well, we've talked a little bit about the application technology from the liquid side and the sustainability and the efficiency that liquid adds. You have a bed, spreader bed, as we talk about dry products on the G5 bed, and talk to us about. We used to just broadcast a pass of fertilizer, and it threw it in the fence rows and it threw it wherever. Talk to us about how you've gone about what technology is available to mitigate that.
Yeah, and I think this is probably an area, if I was a grower today, that I would want to know some of these, and I talked about the AimFlex. I would want to know that some of that technology was being used on my farm, Ryan. And as I think about this dry, the capabilities we have today to put the dry fertilizer where it needs to be, we've come so far in the last, I'm going to say 5 to 8 years. We had what we called an edge bed, which allowed us to, we overlap. Most spreading that happens today, you overlap your spread. Even when you do a pattern test, you overlap your spread a fairly large amount, not quite 100%, but for sure 20 to 30%, depending on how you set your spreader up. And so when you think about going around the edge of your field, if you're over applying, you either have to spread to the center of the road or to the center of the ditch to get what you need at the edge of your field, or under apply at the edge of the field. And so the edge bed allowed us to pull whatever side was going around the outside of the field. You would slow down that spinner. It does it automatically. And you just set in there that you're going, that's your left side or your right side is going around the edge of the field, and it slows down that spinner to be able to do that. Your beds are all pretty much set up that way today. And then to take that technology to the next step is now we actually have the ability to literally shift the fans at the back of the bed so that we can swath control the spinners, and that is some really neat technology. It's got some really neat engineering involved. It's not a lot of electric, it's a lot of mechanical, and it works relatively well. And so it gives us the capability of doing some swath control with a spinner bed.
So, James, tell us a little bit about what the new lineups are. What do we see in the new series of equipment coming out? Clearly, we've got some new stuff for 2023 that we're getting ready to put on order. What are some new capabilities and changes that we can see in the future?
Very good. So, Case is introducing the 50 series sprayer. We're excited about it. You actually can see it for the first time at Louisville. It'll be there at the farm show in Louisville. And the 50 series is going to give you agronomic design, exceptional performance, integrated technology, all be part of the cab. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that our operator is able to be in that cab, be in that environment, be comfortable. Your operators don't just work an 8-hour day. I don't think so.
No, they spend a lot of time in those cabs. Yeah.
So we want to make sure they're comfortable. We want to make sure that, the ride is good, but they also are protected, and they have a cab that's able to do that. And so we're thrilled about the new product. It will actually be, there's going to be 3 sizes. There'll be a 1,600 gallon machine, there'll be a 1,200 gallon machine, and there'll be a 1,000 gallon machine. The 1,000 gallon machine, you could also order that with an 800 if you wanted to. All of those machines will have the capability of doing a 90, 100, a 120, and then you can jump up to the 136, 135, 136 foot boom. So it's pretty exciting.
Go ahead.
That's a long way away from the 60-foot booms that was King Kong back in the 80s, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
One thing for our listeners that aren't familiar, when you talk about a 1,600 gallon bed, just for instance, per acre, we're spraying 12 to 15, maybe 20 gallon an acre. So that gives our listeners that aren't as familiar a little idea of what the capabilities of that machine are. I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, well, that would get you 1,600 acres at a gallon an acre. We just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
12 to 20 gallons, pretty regular for us on application rates.
I got another question. You were talking a little bit, we were offline there a little while, and about telematics. What's that technology?
Yeah, so today we have a lot of new operators. For a long time, most of the operators were farm kids. They grew up on a farm. And then we had that second generation. Maybe their dad worked at a co-op, or their dad worked at a feed store or whatever. And so there was always some ag connected. And today we actually have a lot of young men and women that have nothing to do. They've not grown up in ag, and so they're coming in. And so one of the really neat things that we are putting into our sprayers today is telematics. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to see productivity per hour. Obviously, the depreciation of these machines has a lot to do with how the operator takes care of it, but then it also has to do with the hours that you put on it. So if every hour could put on just a few more acres, that's definitely more money in Premier's pocket. And so what the telematics does is it helps us see our inefficiencies. And one of the things that we've learned over the years is it's not always because the operator isn't running up and down the field. It might be because the operator's waiting in the field for a tender to show up, or it might be because of dispatching and it wasn't, he went a lot of extra miles for the day. So telematics is allows us to be able to see the machine on an hour by hour of its use, whether the sprayer's turned on or it's turned off. It also gives us the capability of even being able to see that from maybe our computer in our office. Maybe a salesman or a plant manager can look at that machine and see, and sometimes can eliminate an issue before it actually happens. So it's some really neat technology that's actually all inside of the cab that we have put out there today. So it's fun and exciting.
James, you made I tell you, kind of hit me that how far we have come with just the comfort for an applicator in the the sprayer or the spreader. And I think for maybe some younger listeners that are listening to the podcast, and if you're looking for a career in agriculture, I mean, an applicator at a good retailer, plug Premier Ag, at a good retailer that's buying and rotating and upgrading their equipment regularly, that's a very good career. And the cabs are comfortable. I never knew we'd need air conditioned seats, but now that I've had one, I never want to be without one, right? And heated seats and Bluetooth wireless, and they are made to be comfortable throughout the day. And
yeah, I personally think that the cab is actually the best retention plan that a retail fertilizer plant can actually use, and that's if the cab is a good cab and it's comfortable, you'll find that the operator will stay.
Yep,
for sure. I kind of think that the telematics thing started several years ago because I had one applicator. He and I were both in different roles at that point in time. But if I was not timely on the tender delivery, that was back in the days of two-way radios, and I would get reminded that his wheels weren't turning. So I believe that was a form of telematics.
Yeah,
in 2000, I believe.
The whole community knew too, right? Because you shared the repeaters with the fire department.
Yeah, we stuck it on
else.
the tallest structure in the community. Yeah, so they all knew that his wheels weren't turning and who was responsible for that. So I hope he is listening to this and enjoys that. So. Okay, well, I think that covers everything. What a great opportunity to come in and talk about this. We're excited. We clearly support your business, and we appreciate the service and the equipment that we get from you. I know our customers can listen to this, and if they have more questions, they can certainly reach out to us and reach out to you and find out more. But we truly are trying to be as efficient and as environmentally friendly and sustainable as we can be, and this equipment helps us do that for sure.
One quick thought, I just coming back to service, it's critical for anyone that's purchasing equipment. I have a brand of pickup that I drive, and the reason why I drive the brand of pickup that I do is because of my dealer and because of the service that they provide. And we recognize that at Jenner, and it's critical. We actually in Illinois and Indiana today, that's why you kind of see these trucks roaming around with the big uptime on the side. But we currently today have 9 uptime techs in Indiana and 13 in Illinois. And then in addition to that, we have 2 UMACs in each state. So we have, and those gentlemen actually are kind of our coordinators, and they also can, if someone was to get sick or someone was to leave and we would hire a new guy, they kind of train and get those guys up to speed. So that's our UMAX. And then over Illinois and Indiana, we have a UMAX Plus. And so in all we have, and then we have actually a trainer, a guy that's what he does, and he also takes he's phone support. So we're committed to service, and these service trucks are expensive, but at the same time, it's what makes the difference as far as keeping your equipment up and running and making sure that, when it's go time, it's up time for your sprayers. So thank you for this time to be able to share with both of you. Ryan and Sal, this has been very good.
All right. Thanks, James.
All right, guys. Thanks. That's another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies.